Hello, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and get started with just some brief introductions, and then I'm gonna let Ashley get going with her presentation since we have till 1:30. And I usually try to be pretty punctual and on time because I know also we all have a lot of stuff going on. So my name is Lori Eldred. I am a private practice owner in Grand Rapids of just a social worker. I'm also the Region 4 rep for NASW Michigan. And if you're not familiar with Region 4, it covers a whole massive swath of like West Michigan. So it covers Kent, Ionia, Montcalm, Ottawa, Muskegon, Newaygo, Mecosta, and Oceana. So that is a very large area. So probably most of the folks here are from Region 4, but also all of our presentations and events are open to anybody from the state. Someone said they can't hear me. Is everybody able to hear me? If I can just okay, good. I hear some I can't hear. And I hear some I can hear. Good. So I have met Ashley through just my involvement with NASW Michigan, and her and I just started talking about this idea of passive income as a social worker. Lots of us, it seems, since we've had about 90 people register, are interested in this topic. And I'm glad to see that. Being a social worker, pay, benefits, all of those things are pretty tricky and challenging in our field. And one of the areas that could use a lot of work in terms of increasing pay and reimbursement. Another way to do that is to create passive income for yourself as a social worker. So I'm going to go ahead, let Ashley introduce herself. I will be monitoring the chat. So if you do have questions, please drop those in the chat. I will pop in and try to get Ashley in between a pause or something, and ask those questions, as well as if you have any concerns, issues, you can message me privately or drop that in the chat as well. So without any further ado, the last thing is we are recording this, and so the recording will be put on the NASW Michigan YouTube page. Ashley also has graciously offered, if folks want a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, that you can email her, or we can send it out even through NASW Michigan. So I know it's an hour and a half, but probably a lot of great information we might not catch right away. So those will be the couple ways that you can get a hold of the information. So without any further ado, Ashley Carter-Youngblood.
Thank you so much, Lori. And I can see the chat on my end, although I'm managing everything on the screen at the same time. Thank you so much for having me. I will absolutely keep my eye on that. My style is to make this collaborative. So if I'm going through and someone has a question or you have a comment, please interrupt me. Please throw it in the chat so that way we can get it. And if I don't see it, Lori, feel free to interrupt me and just share what someone has to say if I get too much, in the zone here. So my name is Ashley Carter-Youngblood. I have been in the field since, doing therapy since 2010. I got my social work degree from Boston University. If we have any hockey fans out there, yes, we did just recently lose to Western Michigan University. Happened to be at the game, but it's okay. We're good losers. We're not sore losers. Good job, Broncos, for doing that. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am a certified integrated mental health provider. I'm a certified nutrition recovery coach. I'm also an acupuncture detoxification specialist and a nutrition network practitioner. I also own my own practice in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And Lori and I have been talking a little bit about passive income as a social worker. One, because I'll introduce myself a little bit and kind of my background, things that you should know about me, but also because, the income as social workers, we all know it. I don't have to tell you that we're not the highest paid ever in the field. So we'll hopefully explore some options for you today in addressing that. And hopefully it will let me actually transition. There we go. Please excuse me in advance. Also, I'm getting over laryngitis, so hopefully you can hear me and I don't have any issues with that. Milk and hot tea. All right. So here's a little bit more about me. So there are a couple things that is important to just know about me in the context of this conversation. The first is that I was raised by two business people. So being raised by two business people meant that we talked about things like profit, we talked about revenue, we talked about marketing, we talked about all of those things at the dinner table. That was something that was normal for us. And so I come from a family where being confident about you and things that you bring to the world, the good that you do is great. And that also you should be compensated fairly for that. Now, of course, we make exceptions, and as social workers, we do good work, and part of our code of ethics is like the pro bono expectation as well too. But for me, I don't have any qualms about being able to talk about doing as good of a job as you can do and also making as much money as you can. So the business stuff, I like that. It comes naturally to me. A lot of the times, especially with social workers, because we're so social justice focused and advocacy focused and other focused, I find that a lot of times the business part is a 4-letter word. Talking about money is a 4-letter word. In my experience, one of the challenges too for women that I see a lot, and I'm a holistic provider. I specialize in working with people holistically, but also I really love working with women with anxiety and professional women. And so even among women, I find, and I don't know what percentage of social workers are women, but I think we all are probably pretty sure it's a vast majority. That a lot of times women haven't really been given a template for like, how do we deal with money? What's the relationship that we have with money? How can we have a healthy relationship with money? That even if we don't really like the business stuff, how can we make sure that we're paid what's fair? And you have the gender weight of my talk today. I want to lay that foundation I want to be able to normalize talking about money and being able to identify what you're good at and using that as a good for the world. This quote that you see towards the bottom, this is something that I was told from a young age from my business owning father, that the goal really in life and what he had recommended is to find something you love to do that doesn't feel like work, and then find a way to make a living doing it so that you never have to work a day in your life and you can go to work and then you can retire whenever you're ready. If you're ready, he's still working at 82, pretty hard. You can give back to the community doing what you love. So I think the beauty of us as social workers is we offer such important things to our community, and we can also feel really good about the stuff that we do. If you were like a repo person where you're taking back people's trucks, you probably wouldn't feel really good about that. And so finding a way to have passive income and increase our quality of life to be able to do the things that are important to us, right? So that there's that old saying of like, you'll know what people value, you know what people want to do in their life and what their priorities are when you look at what they're spending their money on. So if you want to make passive income because you're struggling to pay the bills, or you want to make passive income just because, I don't know, you want to buy a bigger, fancier boat, that's really awesome. Because the beauty of social work is that we can also do more of that good work to advance our community. And you deserve to be valued for that, right? That's a social worker and be encouraging people. The other thing you should know about me is if you could already maybe tell from my credentials, is that I'm a holistic provider. So I came from a family where if you had a headache or a stomach ache, it was like, okay, go to the pantry and get the herbs, get the white willow bark, get the peppermint and papaya. Have you stretched today? Have you had enough water? I did ice baths, all of those kind of things to help support the body and the mind. And so because of that, I started in an agency setting as a social worker, but I never really felt like I could truly be myself. I always felt like, the red tape of social work, the red tape of, nonprofits, agency work specifically. So as, having that business history, there was also a part of me that, I really wanted to realize my own vision of what would it look like to be. And I didn't really know that I wanted to be a social worker inherently. I didn't even really know that I wanted to go into private practice. I never envisioned that I'd be opening my own practice. But as time evolved and my vision of that evolved, it was something that I was really excited to do and kind of create that vision of like, what do I want my waiting room to look like? Do I want to play relaxing music, or do I want to have the TV on? Do I want to have subscriptions, or do I want to, offer free stickers, or diffuse essential oils? Like, what do I want that to be? And so I looked at the whole picture of being able to create something like that. Now, the other thing you should also know about me is that I'm a total nerd. And I really like to do research. I like to figure out what are different ways to do it, and I like to find a way to do it best. I like to figure out what are the holes, what's not effective, what's not efficient, and how can we make that better. You may call that a perfectionist, I suppose. I probably am one of those. And that can be annoying, but also it does make me, the last thing you should know about me is that I'm a total overachiever. So part of what I'm talking about today is we're going to explore like what are some side gigs that you could do. But I've also created a platform that I'm really excited to launch and share with you, because I think it could also assist in that passive income opportunity. See, we have a couple chats. Want to make sure. Oh, love my dad's quote, right? I know, isn't that amazing? He's a wise man. And go Broncos. Excellent. So why passive income? Why are we talking about that? Passive income is relevant for social workers. It's not relevant for just, anyone who wants to have a side hustle. Here's my beef with the field of social work. And I will say it is better after the recent code of ethics, because finally we added verbiage about self-care, right? That in my mind was always lacking with the previous version. We're just expected to do all these other things for everyone else, but where do we come in? Because we do incredible work. We change and save people's lives daily. So my argument here is that we do need to think about the previous slide about what we're taught about money, and that you deserve to be compensated fairly for the good work that you do. Now, who knows what's going on politically right now? Federally with funding, insurance probably isn't going to advocate for you getting paid more if you are in private practice, or even if you're agency setting, they really can't probably pay you too much more than what you're being paid, right? So it kind of like the onus falls on us, right? And I'm hopeful that we can also change the culture of social work surrounding money, because there's nothing wrong with making great money as a social worker. And in my experience, when I went through my master's program at Boston University, while they are a very progressive school, and it's a lot about social advocacy, one of the takeaways that I always felt that didn't sit right with me, having the background that I have from, being raised by two business people, is that it felt like it was the expectation that you were to be like poor, in the gutter, burned out, not having nice clothes, like not even having a life for yourself, but it always being for everyone else, and volunteering your time and picketing, and but you don't have to necessarily be a business person to have passive income. You don't necessarily have to be a business person to be an effective social worker and have a stable life. You don't have to do the business part if you want to. You don't have to go into private practice, even though Lori and I happen to be in that, for example. So I'm really encouraging us with this conversation to really change the way that we're looking about money, to change the way that we're looking about social work in general, so that we can work to change that culture, which of course is probably going to start internally, right? So thank you all for doing what you do, and let's find a way that we can really value that. So as a reminder, because we are social workers, there are some things that the Code of Ethics does say. So as I mentioned earlier with the pro bono part, this is from the Code of Ethics specifically that, quote, social workers are encouraged to volunteer some portion of their professional skills with no expectation of significant financial return. So we know this to be pro bono work. And as I said before, this is part of what makes social workers unique. When I worked in an agency setting, or when I was an independent contractor at a private practice, there were a variety of people. Some people had PhDs, PsyDs, you have licensed professional counselors, other marriage and family therapists, psychologists. No one else has that expectation for pro bono work. And so again, this is contributing to that culture of how do we talk about, how do we think about money and our value in society. And in my argument here is that, self-care can manifest as a lot of things, but your level of income can also be self-care as well too. Just why we're talking about it. So what is and why passive income. Why is that important? Hopefully someday we'll all look like this on the beach with this delicious looking drink here. So passive income is money that you've laid the groundwork for. You've done the work, but you actually don't have to actively work for it. You can continue to like collect on your investment per se. So you may be asking, and I think the fact that we have 90 people, which is sounds like higher than normal attending. I mean, you already probably understand why someone would want passive income, but like who doesn't want to make more money? That's kind of weird, right? Like, why don't we have all the social workers signing up for this conversation today? So here are some statistics that I just want to share with you. When we think about passive income, we think about income as social workers, is that the living wage, which is technically defined by the minimum amount of money needed to cover expenses and save for retirement, because also with the political climate, who knows what's going to happen with Social Security and those kind of things. The living wage, according to research from the federal government, which was reported on CNBC, is $64,116. That's per household. Okay. As of May 2024, the Bureau of Labor Statistics documents the median income is $61,984 per year, which of course is going to vary by state, right? So if you live in the heart of New York City or Chicago, it's going to be very different than if you live, for instance, you know, where I am in Kalamazoo, Michigan. However, even considering these numbers, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that social workers make $58,380 per year. So if we do the math, which I admit is not my strong suit, I became a social worker really because of math, is that means that $5,736, we are under the living wage per year. If you break that down, that's $468 short of the living wage per month based on what social workers make. Now, of course, this doesn't factor in gender. It doesn't even factor in where people are state. So we're not looking at wage gaps relative to gender, ethnicity, or any other components there. These are just the numbers. Even in private practice, right? Which is like the cushy thing that I think sometimes even gets a little bit of judgment because of that culture that we have surrounding money and social work. Even in private practice, by law, this is per the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, so CMS for short. Social workers are actually only allowed to collect 75% of what the physician or psychologist rate is. And I say physician/psychologist because psychologists and physicians, they actually make the same amount for reimbursement rate relative to insurance, which is crazy that this is the case. Now, the other part of this is how is the current political climate going to affect this specifically? I don't know if anyone knows what's going on right now. But especially from an insurance perspective, insurance companies aren't going to be advocating for an increase in pay, right? Like probably not the federal government is going to be advocating for an increase in pay. So again, that level of you want to make more, you want to have more stability, that's really kind of going to fall on us, right? Because I don't know about you, but if you deal with any insurance companies anytime, I don't think we're going to trust that they're going to be even equitable or value mental health in the same way that we would. So what are some common side hustles that people can do? You probably know these people in your life. I feel like we all have someone, whether a family member or a friend, who's like, they're always doing something. They're always, doing a side hustle. And, here are some very legitimate ones, right? So I know some people who make some good money doing the rideshare stuff, whether that's Uber or Lyft. I know that some people people make relatively good money doing house sitting or cleaning specifically. Not only that, maybe you could do pet sitting and walking. You can even be on one of those online registries. You could do food delivery. Also know a handful of people both for food delivery, whether that's DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever. Also the grocery shopping, like shipped in Instacart. I also know people who can make good money doing those things as well too. So that's definitely an option. Another side hustle could be Airbnb, whether that's in your home specifically, you're renting a room or you're renting a section. Or I also know people are purchasing homes, they're having a second mortgage, they're doing the like vacation home rental thing on the side. And that's definitely an option. You could do that, right? You could also scale it down a little bit and you could, go on Facebook Marketplace like crazy. You could be on eBay and that shirt that you're just a little bit over or something, some crazy gift that Aunt Jenny gave you that you are never going to use, you could resell that on eBay. Those are options. You could do tutoring or teaching, whether this is academically or whether maybe it's even a hobby. Maybe you're really good at fiber arts. And so, you're sponsored by your local art center to teach certain classes every once in a while, doing something you love. That would be fun and exciting. You could also do reviews. So whether secret shoppers, you can sign up for various online things. They'll send you promotions and places to go shop. Or on Amazon, some people will do promotions to get reviews and they'll like allow you to just have that thing for free and then you can send reviews. I have a friend who did this all the time. They essentially furnished their entire home with fixtures and furniture and whatever, finding ways to have people send you the things so that you can get reviews. So that's an option, right? Especially if maybe you're moving into your home or redecorating. You could also, speaking of the return on your investment for passive income, you could go into real estate. You could purchase something, you could become an owner of a strip mall, you could invest in the stock market. Although maybe not now, people may be a little gun shy, but it's an option, right? These are common things you could do. You could also have another business. So I have a social work colleague who owns a pretzel shop. So this is a tribute to Julie here. But here are the challenges with these, right? So these are side hustles, but are these really passive income? So if we break down these different options, that all of them may be fun and get you some sort of joy or some sort of additional income. Well, if you're doing a ride share, like Uber or Lyft, that's going to be wear on your car, right? I know, as a woman, I'm not sure if I really want to be driving people late at night. Even in Kalamazoo, we had this tragic accident. This Uber driver who went crazy and like shot their passengers. I don't know if that was 5 or 10 years ago, but I mean that's a significant concern for people. Do you want to be having the wear and tear in your car? Or do you want to be having that one-on-one time with people? Now you can do the house sitting or cleaning, but people only need their house sat so much or cleaned so much, so that may be hard to find clients consistently. Now, if you're pet sitting or walking, you obviously want to make sure you're not allergic, right? And maybe you're not even a pet person, right? So there are considerations there. Same thing with the food delivery relative to your car, also safety. Same thing with grocery shopping, right? You're going to have to put extra miles on your car, but hopefully you like grocery shopping, right? If you're going to do some of that shopping for people, and you may not. I don't know a ton of people who really like grocery shopping. Now, the Airbnb is an interesting one. That is definitely more common. I also have a friend always doing some sort of side hustle, and it's actually not one, it's probably 3 to 5 at a time. They have never lived in a home where they are not constantly renting at least one room of their home. If we ever come to visit them, we have to notify them like 6 months in advance, because then they have to turn off those days, or they have people constantly coming and go. It's like a revolving door. If you're someone who's quiet, who needs your space, while that may get you some additional income and you may be able to interact with other people who are traveling from France, and you get to learn about the culture of France or whatever it may be, that sounds fun, but also that's your space, and that can also be wear and tear on your items as well too. And now people don't usually treat our items as well as we do. Now you could also sell the extra unwanted items. This though, if anyone has bought anything on Facebook Marketplace, like, has anyone ever had a good experience where it's smooth? Like, people are crazy, right? They will say crazy things, or they'll get back to you, or they'll harass you, or they won't get back to you. Or Facebook Marketplace, I feel like, is kind of a psychological behavioral experiment for the human condition. So if you're doing that, you absolutely could do that, but that's going to be a lot of work and probably take a lot of your patience. And my guess is that you're probably working to manage your own patience as you're seeing your clients. So I don't know about you, I don't have a lot of extra energy to give to that after my workday. Now, the tutoring and teaching, if you're teaching kids, hopefully you would enjoy kids, right? Hopefully you would find something if you're doing something like that, like if you were into fiber arts, hopefully you really liked weaving and you could teach that, and that could be exciting. But that's also going to take a lot of prep. If you've taught anything, even if, for example, you're, teaching a college course, what's the syllabus? What are you going to do each time? How are you going to handle that? That's a lot of work, and definitely not the definition of passive income, right? The reviews could be an option, like I said, but in my experience, that tends to be pretty minimal. It's not like that is going to come around a lot, especially if you use a secret shoppers thing. Usually it's specific stores that you go to. So maybe it's, like Kohl's, and you never shop at Kohl's, or maybe it's Tractor Supply and you never shop at Tractor Supply. Oftentimes, one of the challenges of those is you have to pay for the thing and then they'll reimburse you. And so if finances are tight, that may not be really very conducive to something that earns you a lot of money in the end, or maybe even is enjoyable. Now, real estate or stock market, usually that's going to be a really significant investment, right? I mean, you're not going to buy a second home for a couple $100. And the stock market, especially now, is probably going to be ongoing stress for people because no one really knows what it's doing. So the stock market, while, yeah, absolutely, you could have a really significant return on your investment, usually you have to invest, or maybe it's even Bitcoin, right? Like if you buy that, there's also a lot of risk there too. And so if you're risk adverse, even if it's a small amount of money, that may not be the best fit for you as a side hustle. Now, the same thing with a business. If you're gonna have another business, or maybe you do agency work in general, and maybe you're thinking about starting your own business that isn't necessarily clinical or social work at all. If you open a pretzel shop, that's going to require time, and it's going to require liability as well too. Now you're an owner. What about slip and fall insurance? That's in addition. Now do you have to hire people, and what are your hours going to be? And now you're working really 2 jobs, right? So these are just some examples, of course. I'm sure, you have many more of them. The options are endless, right? So you could make something, you could be you could do ceramics and you could sell art that you do, or you could get chickens and you could sell the eggs. But my question to you, as we talk about passive income, something sustainable enough, are these things sustainable? Are they also fulfilling? And are they also offering enough income to make it worth your while? I mean, you could spend hours and hours on Facebook Marketplace. If you sell a couple things, that's great. But if it took you, let's say, 5 total hours to sell something for $60, if you break that down, like how much were you actually paid an hour? If you're paid like less than minimum wage, or less than you're paid as a social worker, like my guess is you're probably not going to want to do that thing consistently, right? And so that when we're talking about passive income, that's something that I would encourage you to consider is, can you measure your time based on what you believe your value and worth is per hour? If you're making less doing these side hustle things than what you believe your value is worth per hour, then they may not be sustainable for you. Now, since we're social workers, here are some social work specific side hustles. Most popular one's probably the supervision part. So whether that is for licensure, limited license, or whether that's for certifications, like for example, if you're EMDR certified, those are probably the most supportive, the most common option. You could also do public speaking, right? Like me today, I get to do this, but there are also maybe people who would be willing to reimburse you for that, whether it's, you were speaking at a community event, or it maybe, I know I have an adjunct professor here, maybe, there's a fair that they want you to speak at, or convention. Those may be some additional things that are in the realm of social work. Now you could start also, or you could expand a private practice, whether that's adding employees or whether that's adding independent contractors. You could also do on-call social work. So I had a colleague who worked in this area, used to live here, and she would do on-call social work for the hospital, whether that was assessments, crisis interventions, anytime someone came in the ER and there was some support needed. That could also be through like a crisis line, for example. Maybe that's something that you could do, that you have the clinical skill to do that, you have the passion to do that. And you can have that as a side hustle. You could also do writing, whether that is you writing a book, even if it's like a children's coloring book, or you could write blogs. There are certain websites that they will pay people to have blogs published so that they are not necessarily creating the content themselves, but the website owner. You could also do coaching and consulting. So whether that is you used to be a teacher or you're really good at IEPs and you can kind of coach families to do that, people are always looking for that kind of information and support. Also parenting coaches. I know some social workers who do behavioral coaching on the side for parents specifically outside of their regular like social work day. Now you could do affiliate marketing. So whether this is linking with Amazon, which just as a note, you do have to legally say that you get some sort of reimbursement or kickback with that. There's a platform called FullScript that I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute. It's related to my holistic credential. So because of some of my certifications, it's an online pharmacy. Pharmacy in quotes, it's like a natural pharmacy. So you can buy supplements and organic shampoos and, you know, essential oils and things like that. So because of my credentials, I have the ability to have an account with them. And so I can make in the same way that if you go to a doctor, you get a prescription and the prescription system or the electronic health records or medical records system will, or maybe even where you fill the script will say, okay, your prescription is ready, here you take it this many times a day, and this is the dose or whatever. FullScript will do that. So I, as a provider with those credentials, can have conversations with my clients about nutrition and supplements and ways to use nutritherapy as interventions for behavioral health and wellness. And I can type that up and I can send that to them as like a recommendation for, okay, you would take GABA as an amino acid to manage anxiety 4 times a day, 30 minutes before bed, or whatever it may be. So those affiliate marketing things are definitely an option, especially depending on your credentials. Now, you could also do clinical evaluations too on the side, whether that is in-home stuff, which I'm sure you could even be an independent contractor as a social work, doing some of that as a side gig. But even for the courts, it may be being officially an expert witness, which I know has a lot of implications and paperwork related to that, but that's an option, right? You could even do assessments related to like personality inventories or other clinical assessments specifically. Now you could be in.
Ashley, can I jump in here? Kimberly has she has her hand up, so I don't know if
Oh,
she's got
okay.
a question.
I can't see that, so please do, yeah.
Kimberly, do you have a question? You can go ahead and unmute and ask or drop it in the chat. Maybe she doesn't.
I can see the chat, I just can't see the hand.
Yeah, maybe that was just an error. Okay, sorry. So
Wait, yeah, hold on. Oh, accidental, okay.
No worries, thank you.
Well, thanks for your engagement, we appreciate it. So independent contractor, for telehealth specifically, we know that telehealth has like opened up this whole realm of things, even though it's a little bit shaky relative to the government doing the interstate line license restrictions and all that stuff. So that's kind of a question mark, which I'll go into in a minute, but even something like Talkspace, you know, doing something like that on the side, where you can do that could absolutely be a side hustle as a social worker. Other things related to content, similar to the writing component, maybe, you know, having things that you have on a YouTube channel, for example. Maybe you start a podcast about social work, or maybe you start a podcast about relationships, or, you know, behind the scenes look at what it's like to be a therapist. You can put that content out there because you, again, are valued and have something important to say. You can also create course content. So I have some colleagues who use things like Kajabi or Blackboard. So the way these work is like you create a course, and some of you have various certifications. You may have gotten your certifications if they're self-paced through a platform like that. So you have a course and you have like different modules that you click through. Again, so you're creating a lot of content for people to be able to pay for and purchase. And like I had referenced before, related to the public speaking, you could also be an adjunct professor, which I think Lori is too. So that's super cool. We always see people doing things like that. But here are the challenges with these things as social work side hustles. So if you think about the supervision part, my colleague Julie, who also owns the pretzel place, she is like the go-to person for social work supervising. And I can't remember, Lori, if you remember what the program is called, but it's like the social work supervision certification. Do you know what that's called?
NASW has the Supervision Institute.
So it may be through there. And Julie is like, she plays a big part in that. I mean, one of the things that she and I talks about is the liability. Something has a course supervision. It may be that. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's related to the NASW. Julie's a rock star when she does that. But there a lot of times people who do supervision, they don't really get the liability related to that. For your own licensure. Ah, thanks, Jordan. Yep, NASW course supervision. Okay. So that's a big consideration. Do you really want to be responsible for literally everything that your supervisee does, even if you've never met that client, even if like you know nothing else? That's a really big responsibility to carry. And a lot of times that is something that makes people uncomfortable. Hard enough being our own clinicians for ourselves, right? And having that liability there. Supervision also is a lot of time, right? Relative to, I think it's still, is it 4 hours per month for licensure supervision, if I remember, relative to, it's been a long time since I've done that, but relative to limited license clinicians. So that's a big commitment. Now, public speaking, similarly, I think we all know that that's like people's most common fear other than heights, right? Usually people are not super excited to do public speaking. Remember, I'm a nerd and I'm an overachiever, so I'm like the weird exception to that. Most people aren't jumping to do that though. If you are, that's awesome. You should definitely do more of that. The world needs you. Starting or expanding a private practice, also more liability, right? Just like if you open your pretzel shop, now you do have to have this whole other thing. And now you're also kind of a supervisor, right? Or you're hiring people, or you have an independent contractor, and there are implications that would fall back on your license. You're putting yourself at more risk, even if you have a business structure like a PLC or LLC that protects you. But also any business, and even if you're adding to your business, is going to be extra work. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard. Now, on-call social work, that usually is going to be a crisis situation, right? So even if it's the hospital example that I gave for my specific colleague, it's going to be more clinical work. So when we think about social work side hustles, or when we think about passive income, we also want to consider, if you're doing social work full time, do you really have the emotional capacity to also be doing social work after? Right? Even if that is really fulfilling. And so I think that's going to be a balance, right? Is it making you enough money? Is it fulfilling? But is it also contributing to burnout? Because that's the last thing we need for you, right? Is like, we know how burned out social workers are, and even everyone in the healthcare industry. So when you're considering passive income or side hustles or what more you can do, I'm hopeful that you can find a balance for those things. Now, the writing part obviously would be important if you liked writing. With some wonderful AI assistants like Grammarly, you can be, or even ChatGPT, you could be an amazing writer. So that is different as technology has evolved, but writing is also a lot of work. And if you don't like it, you're probably not going to have a ton of fun with it. You're probably not going to do it very often, right? Like journaling, right? How many times have you told your clients, you're like, I don't like journaling? They're probably not going to do it when they come back to the next session. coaching and consulting. So whether that is for clients, or I, for example, also do like coaching and consulting for other clinicians to start or expand their private practice, business coaching. So you can do that on the side, but that's also time and effort. Hopefully you like to do that, but it is additional time and effort. It may in some ways also be additional liability, especially if that would maybe, if you're coaching parents behaviorally, that's kind of a side gig enough to maybe you'd want to like open your own business to create more liability, right? And so now you have, or more liability protection, but now you also have the component of liability, like what if their dog bites you when you're there, so you just have to think about those other layers. Now, affiliate marketing, as I said before, you are required to list that there's some sort of revenue that people get from using those links. But I have the question ethical here based on my own experience with FullScript. So FullScript, as I described before, is that online pharmacy or like wellness store that people can order from. And so when you sign up as a provider and you give them your credentials and they give you permissions. The settings automatically default to you as a provider giving a prescription for someone. Now, I'm not a physician, so I can't prescribe. Luckily, they are very smart, and they also offer the point that the option for the vocabulary used to be recommendations. So you can have the recommendations, but the other thing that it defaults to is that it defaults to the provider making a cut of all sales used by those clients. You can also change them to be called patients. Again, they're defaulted to patients. I changed them to clients. So that was something that I wasn't comfortable with. Could that be passive income? Yeah, but I wasn't exactly sure how I felt about that. I did my due diligence there. And if you're not an NASW member, please become an NASW member, because their ethics and legal hotline is amazing as a resource. And so I called them and I explained the situation. I consulted with a couple of my other colleagues. And so it was determined that that's not something that I should ethically be receiving income from. Not that the passive income is inherently bad, although social work, I think as a field, we tend to lean away from that, get a little bit uncomfortable with that. But my concern was really, I didn't want clients to feel pressured. And when I give them information now from a nutritional therapy standpoint, I'll say like, hey, this is just a link. I don't get a cut from this. You may be able to find it cheaper, like at the grocery store. You may be able to find it cheaper on Amazon. It's just really nice for people to have, hey, here's the thing, here's the ingredients, here's the dosage, here's how often that you take it. So the affiliate marketing, why that can be really great, and it may inherently be passive income. There are, especially as a social worker, considering our code of ethics, some ethical components of that. And also those tend to be pretty minimal. Especially if you're considering like affiliate links with Amazon, like if you ever looked up a recipe online, you know what I'm talking about, relative to also it feels very cluttered and spammy. So, you have to, like, my partner will, ask for a recipe to be found that I forgot about or I didn't save or whatever. And I'll say, hey, will you find me that recipe? And they'll be like, okay, hold on, I have to read through their whole life story first, and you have to scroll all the affiliate links. And that's also just kind of annoying, right? I mean, you could do it, but in the long run, when people do those affiliate marketings, people make like maybe a couple bucks a month, even if their website is really, really spammy. So again, is it worth it? Clinical evaluations, whatever that looks like, you may really enjoy that. For me, the clinical assessment process is such the antithesis of my style as a holistic therapist. That's about like the deep spiritual, emotional work that incorporates nutrition. That's just not really my style, but that may be your jam. If you really like to do clinical assessments, as we know, social workers do have the qualifications to be able to do certain ones. So if you want to do that, that's awesome. Just know, do you want to have more clinical work outside of your clinical work, right? Independent contractor, telehealth. I put ethical here because I don't know if anyone has heard. I'd love to hear them if you have any to share, but I have heard some horror stories about these telehealth platforms, whether Talkspace or BetterHelp. I have had clients say, I started on BetterHelp and my therapist kept like driving through the drive-through. Like while we're having a session and like being like, hold on, give me a second. And they're like placing their order and then like walking in and it was just like horrible things that, so I think if you want to do that, okay. But also I think you want to be really clear, um, is the reputation of that platform something that you want to align yourself with? Or maybe that may go back to the private practice thing, that may be like you want to do it on your own terms ethically. So maybe that would be more appetizing for you. And also, I mean, if you're doing something like that, it's just really more therapy, right? So like you go to agency, if you do agency work, which may not necessarily be therapy, but if you do private practice, like at the end of my day, I'm not going to want to do more telehealth specifically. Now, more content creation. So whether this is a channel that you're creating or podcast, or frankly, even if you do like social media management for a friend, because you just love Facebook more than anyone, that's excellent. That's also a lot of work, especially if you're doing YouTube things like videos or podcasts. If you haven't done it before, it is insanely time consuming. You probably will spend 5 to 10 times the amount of time editing those things and perfecting them than you did actually like recording them, doing the job. It's impressive when people do that for a living to me. Same with the course content. So that sounds really appetizing, right? But the other thing to consider about those platforms is that platforms like Kajabi, they're going to charge you a monthly fee, and which is usually pretty substantial, and they're going to charge you a monthly fee whether anyone ever looks at your course, whether anyone ever buys it, whether anyone ever interacts with it. They also typically charge you a percentage of that as well too. So if you create this awesome course, but you're charged for that to be hosted there and no one buys it, that's actually the opposite of a side hustle or passive income, right? Like you've done the amazing work, but it's detracting from your financial stability. And of course, for an adjunct professor, you have to probably like academia, right? You have to probably like teaching people, and creating those kind of things, having that creative mind. So whatever these are, while they're great, and they could definitely be social work side hustles, they're not really passive, right? Because they are taking more work. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the burnout, right? I mentioned that before, but also social workers, I don't need to go in depth to you, but I do feel like it's important for me to give you a picture of also why passive income is important in this way. So in case we just want to be like, oh yeah, after COVID, things got crazy, I can't keep up with my client loads. The Health Resources and Services Administration reported that even prior to COVID-19, it was between 21 and 67 of behavioral health providers who felt overburdened due to emotionally taxing positions, high stress environments, lack of career investment, low salaries, which Lori alluded to, right? Which is probably a majority of why you're here, and also high caseloads. So this is a problem even before COVID. However, we all probably know since COVID, things are even crazier. So therapists are working way, way more than they were prior to COVID. For one of the most fascinating data points that I've learned in my research just about burnout and COVID and developing this platform that I'm going to share with you is that on average, it takes 48 days. Again, same federal report that it takes for someone to get behavioral health care. That's crazy, right? I mean, think about what can happen in 48 days, but we all know this, like everyone's on a waiting list. I used to have a steady stream because I've been on a waiting list since I started my own private practice. At the longest, I think during COVID, I think my waiting list was 12 pages long. What do you do with that, right? And so I used to have a list of people who I would refer to, but all those people were full. So where are you going to send people, right? I mean, everything is just backed up. The healthcare field, we all know, is really, really burdened as well, too. And almost half of respondents, this is from the American Psychological Association specifically, have reported not being able to meet the demand of their patients. So there's just not enough hours in the day. And this relates to passive income because, again, we want to find that balance what's fulfilling, what makes you enough money, what's interesting to you, but what may not be contributing to more burnout. And so these statistics here I also find interesting is that 1/3 of the workforce reports spending most of their time on administrative tasks. I just learned from a physician leader the other day that on average, the math is for every clinical hour that a doctor spends with a patient, they actually have 2 clinical hours of documentation. We think our documentation is bad, right? I can't even imagine that. 68% of those who provide care to patients say that the amount of time spent on administrative tasks takes away from the time they could be directly supporting clients. And this is really frustrating because we became social workers for a reason, right? I don't know anyone, again, I'm a nerd, right? I'm a total weirdo. I actually like the documentation part. It helps me process through it. But for the normal people out there, no one really likes creating the case notes, right? And so whether that's not even case notes, but that may be billing, that may be scheduling, other documentation, coordination of care, that's a huge detractor from the work and fulfillment that we have. It greatly contributes to burnout. So especially in private practice, isolation is one of the biggest challenges that people in private practice have. And this, again, even prior to COVID, everyone in private practice knows it's like one of the biggest challenges of private practice. So you have the isolation, you have the burnout, you have like the ethics of I want to be able to see the clients, but I can't see the clients because I have the administrative tasks, but I can't refer them, but those people are full. I mean, it's really hard for us to find a solution to how to do this well, let alone passive income. So let me move the box here. So here's my question about passive income is how can we create an ethical source of passive income that is fulfilling, but that doesn't contribute to more burnout via additional clinical work or administrative tasks, because that's not going to be good for us either. Even in private practice, it can get really slippery relative to, okay, I can see that other client. I mean, I'm not that burned out. I guess I could have an 8th session today if I really, it's hard to do that. But can we also simultaneously use bridge the gap? Can we really bridge the gap for mental health services following COVID? Because that's a major concern as well too, because of that 48-day waiting period and because of the burnout and all of those things. So here's some other interesting statistics about passive income and burnout is that in America, 52% of even the private practice, like, cushy social work jobs, therapists say that they're burned out. And of all the practitioners who have considered leaving the mental health workforce, 57% of them say they plan to leave the field in the next 5 years. So the Health Resources and Services Administration did this really big report. And I have this in the references. I encourage you to read it because it's a little scary, but also encouraging. It's really good information for us to know. And they talk about all the things that we talked about in, oops, wrong one. I'm gonna go back. Uh-oh. I'm ruining it now. All these things here. So the feeling overburdened due to taxing positions, high stress environment, lack of work, all of these things are contributing. They also factor in retirement, right? And so like we already have a difficult time, but there are a lot of people, especially those baby boomers, they're approaching retirement. And so when people are leaving the field, they're also going to leave in the next 5 years. This is a really big pickle for us in our field of social work. Even internationally, burnout is as high as 54% of behavioral health clinicians. So these are just crazy numbers, right? It's hard to feel hopeful about that. And here's a quote specifically from that report, one of the ones that I think is most illustrative. So increasing the supply of the behavioral health workforce is not enough to address systemic provider and patient level barriers. It's not enough. We can't make clinicians fast enough. We just don't have the supply there, right? Supply and demand. So again, going to my question, can we then also have an ethical, fulfilling, passive income stream that can also create community? Because as good social workers, you and I know that one of the biggest protective factors for anything, but particularly burnout, is community. And so this research had talked about how current psychotherapists should continue to seek support within their profession as well as outside. in order to maintain their well-being and decrease the risk of experiencing burnout. We even had, if you attended, hopefully you did, the Michigan NASW conference that was even titled Building Connections, Social Workers' Role in the Divided Era. Community is so important for us. So my thought, remember I'm an overachiever, right, is that we can use other successful models to create a community that's ethical, right, that's interdisciplinary, to offer a solution to both the isolation, particularly in private practice, but also burnout of the social work field, while also making therapy easier and more accessible, and while also offering passive income. And so when you think about other communities or platforms, it may just be, you know, like Etsy is a great one, right? If you're a creator, you're a creative mind, you can do things like that. Teachers pay teachers, which is where teachers can create content, they can share it with each other, parents can purchase it, but also other teachers can purchase it from other teachers. Same with OutSchool. So that's where you can have a course or a platform, whether it's like tutoring or, you know, like Algebra 1, whatever it is. I even know some OutSchools courses that you can sign up for, and there's this community of kids that they watch like the oh geez, I'm not a comic book person, but like the certain comic book with movies like series all together. So we already have platforms that do this well and that are successful. So here is where Therapy Cloud comes in. So Therapy Cloud is a platform that I have created. It's a community designed to connect mental health professionals with each other and those seeking support in order to make therapy easier and more accessible for all. So this is a thing. You know, I recently talked a little bit about this in my presentation on private practice at the NASW conference, and someone raised their hand and was like, is this like a thing? I was like, yeah, yes, literally. I have created this platform. I've been working with a developer for over a year. I'm the founder of it, CEO, and I'm letting people know because it can be a great source of passive income. It can be a great source to hopefully address all of those challenges that we're experiencing in the social work community. So for example, one of the things that you get with Therapy Cloud is you get a therapist listing. So, you know, you have Psychology Today, you have Good Therapy, those ones are pretty popular. But the industry standard from a marketing perspective is that 50% of your referrals should come from online if you are a private practice clinician specifically. We also have a client attracting rating system as well too. That can help draw people to your profile. We'll get to the passive income components in a minute, but just so that you have the background, part of what we also offer for the packages is that we also offer CE tracking and document storage. So that way, when license renewal comes around, you're not shuffling papers and trying to figure out where on earth that thing was. You can download it. It's literally listed there because our jobs are hard enough. We don't need the process of having our license renewed and updated to be any harder than it needs to be. There also in Therapy Cloud is a private interdisciplinary professional forum. The reason why I created this as part of the vision is there is a Facebook group locally to me that has over 1,000 people. And there's all sorts of like unethical things. I mean, people can get intense, right? We know this, humans are kind of interesting creatures. But there's a lot of HIPAA violations. There's a lot of, you know, and it's out there, and people forget that like just because you're in a private Facebook group doesn't necessarily mean that you're not violating some sort of ethical or legal standards there. But also for consultation, also for networking here, for jobs posting, people looking to expand their practice, people looking to get different jobs, maybe doing even some side hustles. That will be totally interdisciplinary. As a part of the platform, we want to help people do their job and stay on top of industry trends, especially things like telehealth. So we'll constantly have industry updates that we will send to our members. We also have a feature that is event listings as well too. So if you have a monthly membership package with us, you can post any amount of events that you want, whether that's group therapy, or maybe you know that the ASPCA is having some sort of like free spay and neuter your pet situation, anything that can enhance, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, your local community, to just bring that community together. All of the platform, even the profiles for each of the therapists is completely SEO optimized for marketing purposes. SEO stands for search engine optimization. So that relates to that first bullet point here. The industry standard is that 50% of your referrals should come from online. And the reason why that is because SEO is essential. So when's the last time you went on Google and went to page 7 to find something? No, you're going to look at the top. Research shows that they look at like the top 2 or 3 people, but definitely no one's scrolling past the second page. So it's really important to have consistent, reliable, and trustworthy presence online so that people will actually trust you and purchase from you. And we do have as part of the package like a featured therapist profile. So the content that I'll talk about here, which is the passive income big thing, but also your ability to have your profile featured will be something that could also get people those views, especially if they're wanting to grow their practice. That's a great option there. So here's the passive income part, right? Here's why I'm incorporating this here is because we have on here what's called a therapy marketplace. We have that's launching. We're expected to launch that next month as the features unroll. But it is a place to create and have on-demand content for purely passive income to sell, whether that is to clients or whether that's to colleagues. So that could be handouts, it could be courses, it could be coaching packages. And I'll go through some examples here so that you can get a sense of what that is. So here is kind of a breakdown of what those packages look like right now. We are currently in our free beta version. So nothing costs anyone anything right now. We're also doing a promotion that the first 1,000 clinicians to sign up to help us get the ball rolling and help create this community and spread that love and support and ability for passive income as far as we can, that you get free membership for a year. But here are some of the things that we're hoping to accomplish with this solution. And then here are the implications for passive income. So for potential clients, the presence on the platform is going to boost confidence and retention too with a client attracting rating system. Research shows that people are valuing reviews online, even just as much as if they get like a personal referral from someone specifically. So also consider how you buy things. Usually we're looking at the ratings, right? And so if someone's looking at you, doing research, looking at your ratings, finding your content, they're likely going to be really intentional about seeing you, not just like, hey, I'm looking for a therapist. Can I come see you? And then they never come back. It has the ability to offer instant access to life-saving care. I think about, especially as a Michigander in the UP, right? I mean, like how many people need support in the UP and how sparse are therapists up there and how many people don't necessarily do telehealth, especially with some of the changes that make telehealth not actually possible. Who knows what's going on with that politically. But people who maybe they have concerns about therapy and a therapist sounds intimidating, you can offer instant access with that on-demand content that is able to be posted there. This also would remove the barrier to service and location. Right, so telehealth, yeah, great question. So Violetta, are you optimizing SEO for clinicians? Yes, absolutely. So everything on the entire website, even related to the profile and description that clinicians have for their profile specifically, all SEO optimized. We literally have a team of web marketing developing people who are doing that. Clinicians, absolutely, that is all your intellectual property. We are not taking any ownership of that. If you want more information on the policies part of that, you can actually go to therapycloud.com and you can look at our terms and conditions. It will say all of that on there. And then if you have any questions, we'll get to that. Like, I want to involve, I'm telling you this about you because I want to improve. I'm telling you about this because I want us to be able to create this collaboratively. So again, going back here, removing the barriers to the service location. So, you don't even necessarily have to do telehealth. If someone really wants support and like they want to see you and they're in Arizona and you are not licensed in Arizona, you don't have to do telehealth, but you have that on-demand content that they can buy in the middle of the night when you're not even thinking about it. That, my friends, is what we call passive income. It's affordable in the sense of if you're purchasing certain passive income content, but insurance isn't being considered for that. It may not even necessarily be repetitive. So that may be more affordable when you think about a barrier for care for potential clients. Now, this is a big one too, that's close to my heart. It's going to avoid some of that misinformation from those influencers out there. How many of us have had someone come to you and say like, oh, I understand now I have autism. Or yeah, it's that attachment disorder that I have. And you're like, wait, what are we basing this on? Right. I mean, and I'm glad that people are looking into that and asking questions. Yeah, but those people, right? But guess what? You are someone who's going to be seen as an actual licensed, knowledgeable person. And I think for me, part of why I want to create the content is because I want people to have the accurate information. So as I mentioned about the event listings, this is going to be local, both local and virtual event listings to be able to build our community further. Future vision of this is actually integrating with an electronic health record system to have secure messaging and scheduling fully integrated to make it even easier on us, because again, we don't need anything that's harder. So for therapists, hopefully the benefit of this, excuse me, is that isolation and burnout would be reduced because we'd have that collaboration. Because we'd have that consultation for both the therapy aspect of it and the business part, especially for those people who don't really like the business stuff. You'll get those updates and the ever-changing, especially with telehealth industry trends. You have the opportunity for passive income. The barriers for interstate licensure restrictions is obsolete because you're not doing therapy across state lines. You're just providing information. It expands the therapeutic reach also beyond one client at a time. Think about the research that I had shared before about like a majority of providers don't have the time for that. Okay, well then guess what? You can help multiple people just with that passive income work that you've created. Hopefully, there's also the administrative efforts that are lessened via the integrated CE tracking and the integrated and the featured marketing. So this complete therapist membership, that's the featured part where you can have that featured. And so again, we want you to be involved because we want you to create that future of therapy. I'm really believing that this could create, change the course of the course of how we do mental health, specifically addressing all of the challenges. So you may be asking, like, where on earth do we start here? And we're almost to the end. So let me make sure we're on track here. So where do we start? So what I encourage you to think about, remember where we started our conversation relative to like, you're worth it. You deserve to be able to make money. You deserve to be valued for what you do. You're amazing humans doing amazing work. And so what are you really good at? What is the thing that you're like, even if you're working on your own sense of self and self-worth, like, you know what? I'm really good at like cognitive behavioral therapy interventions. I'm always the one at my office that people go to for, working with that really difficult 7-year-old. How do you do that? What do you want people to know that they may not know about already? Especially if they're not interested in formal therapy, right? As opposed to finding like the misinformation from, those social media influencers. What do you want people to know that if therapy intimidates them, you think they should have access to? What does the world need access to? Also, from an SEO, search engine optimization perspective, what are people searching? So answerthepublic.com is a really great resource. You can pay for that, but if you have the free version, I think they let you do 3 to 5 searches a day. What the important thing is for SEO, and if you choose to become a member of Therapy Cloud as a community, which we'd love you to do, we will collaborate with each person who wants to have the featured package and they want to be able to produce blogs or they want to have featured content, because we'll work with you and come up with a plan of like, what are people searching? What do you want to talk about? We'll literally do the data in collaboration with you so that we can make sure whatever you are producing on that site will be most visible and you will be at the top of the search rankings, because we that's the beauty of technology and AI integration and all of those things, right? We can actually answer, we know now what people are searching. Also, when you think about your work as a social worker, what has really helped your clients in the past? Feedback that you're getting from them. What have you also already created for your clients? For example, worksheets that maybe you didn't like think it was going to go anywhere. You didn't think you could put it on somewhere and like charge money for it, but guess what? you already have that, right? So that could just slip into passive income. Thanks, Violetta. Been working hard on it. What feels creative to you? So this may be exercises, this may be handouts, like just be creative, right? Like you have important things to say. You're a beautiful person who helps other people. What can we do? What are your specialties and unique credentials? Considering both like potential clients, right? Even if they're in Arizona, you never know. They just buy something because they think you're amazing and it's deposited in your bank account automatically. You've never met them. You don't have any paperwork. You got nothing, right? It's just literally passive income. You've done the work, you put it out there, and the universe and the platform of Therapy Cloud helps people to find you, but also colleagues. So here's an example. On the left here, you'll see if you go to therapycloud.com and if you go to the resources tab, you will be able to literally download this. So this is something that we created to help people get more comfortable and like, what of worth do I have to share? The other thing to consider about that is that if you want to be a part of the community, but if you feel a little stuck even with these suggestions, part of the beauty is the interdisciplinary forum as well too. So we're actually going to have specifically a room where people can collaborate on creative ideas. So that they have ideas about how to help people, because that's really what we're doing here, right? We're helping people, whether it's our colleagues or whether it's potential or people that aren't even clients that we've never met. They just like us and want our contact. So here are, these are only a couple, to be honest. As I've been developing this, I have 14 pieces of content ready to go when this feature launches. And again, our plan is in May. So we have this, here are 14 things for when this is officially launches. So I have a 4-hour nutrition and mental health essentials course. Here's what each of these are the prices that I have labeled on it based on what I feel like my value is, based on the kind of like market industry, like just kind of like taking that information, what I would pay for it, right? In the same way that how do you set your rate as a clinician, you also are considering when you're putting these things up there, what do you want to charge? The beauty of it is you can change it at any time. I mean, it's just like Etsy in the sense of if you want to change how much you're charging for the jewelry, you can change that in a heartbeat. And so that one is more expensive, right? But I also have one that is like the female hormone cycle tracker, because one of my specialties is working with women in the holistic part. I mean, that's $1.99, right? I mean, you could easily find something that it can be $99. It can be free. We don't care. If you want to just create all this content and give it away for people, that's fine. It's totally your prerogative to do. So I have these parts for potential clients or people looking for services, right? Like No Cook Brain Healthy Meal Plan. But as a consultant and a coach for clinicians as well too, I also have a package that's like $500 for, it's literally over 16 documents of like the complete package of what you need to start a private practice. It's clinicians, it's already reviewed by a healthcare provider, like it's literally good to go. So we probably don't have a ton of time to brainstorm, but it is a community. So I want people to brainstorm about this and consider that. So here are some resources too that you can consider relative to, when thinking about creating this. And if you click on like a features roadmap, so if you go to therapycloud.com and if you look at, I don't know if this will actually share. Can you see this screen? You wouldn't say yes, no, yes, no, maybe.
I can see it, the resource screen.
Oh, not that one. Okay. So if you go to therapycloud.com, and if you go to the bottom, you'll see that we have a link to the features roadmap. So it will literally give you our plan for rolling out the different features, including the therapy marketplace. So right now there are things that you can create that so it's ready to go. The moment that launches, bam, you can have all that stuff up there, which is why I have 14 of them that I've been creating. But platforms to inspire you about what do people want to see? What are things that I can create? The things that I mentioned, like OutSchool, Teachers Pay Teachers, Etsy, they have things that are pretty expensive. They have things that are really minimal. creative programs like Loom, for example. You can do like a video screen recording where you can, that's how I've done my nutrition and mental health course. You can do that all on your own as well too. Oh yeah, absolutely. Postpartum. Oh, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. So the point is like interdisciplinary. So I want, like I have some chiropractors who are excited. I have PAs, I have yoga therapists, I have, the point is to, if you go to therapycloud.com on the homepage, what we say is like, we know that mental health is not just about emotions, it's about your physical, spiritual well-being. And so we want to have this collective community that we can create with all of the people that have impact on people's mental health. So other creative platforms that you could use, like Canva is great for design. Grammarly, like I said, it can help you have good grammar. Oh no, this is national. Yep, this is for everyone, not just Michigan. I'm just telling you guys because I like you the best and I happen to be in Michigan. The other thing that could be a great resource for you is I am the co-chair of the private practice work group with NASW. So we meet the first Friday of every month from 10 to 11:30. So if you want to attend that, or if you want any information about that, please use me as a resource. I love being a resource. Like I already told you, I'm a nerd. So to be able to like help people be better and explore and collaborate, that is absolutely my total jam. So here's the question. You may be asking like, well, what can I do right now? Okay, well, you can sign up for our free beta version. Here's your QR code. You can go to our website, do it that way. You can follow us on social media to get updates about launch dates. Like I said, that's just a reflection of that, the features roadmap. The next couple of weeks are gonna be big. Because we are going to have the therapist profile features. Again, we've been working on this for a year. And so it's going to come fast because our developers are literally moments away. We're tweaking it. It's a domino effect, all that techie stuff that I don't do. You can also start creating your content. Like I said, when you're creating content, don't forget your descriptions, right? So like decide on a price. Again, it's changeable, but create the content, but also consider your description. So look at things like OutSchool, look at things like Etsy, look at things like Teachers Pay Teachers, so that you have that certain portion where you're ready to literally just be able to launch it when that's live. Please also tell your friends. We have upcoming passive income options as well too. Like I said, first 1,000 people who sign up, you get a free membership. But also in the future, we always want to encourage our community to grow. So we're always going to have one free month for people for every successful referral they make. We're also looking at doing some passive income opportunities. Yeah, so Maria, I had that that page where I showed the cost of each of the memberships. So go ahead. At our most expensive, it is $74.99. Our least expensive, it's $24.99. So we haven't launched we haven't posted that official membership page yet because everything's free right now. So yeah, absolutely. I'd say I have my email at the end, Maria. Send me your email. Anyone who wants this presentation with all that information, just shoot me an email, or Lori may say shoot her an email. I'm happy to give it to you. That's PowerPoint slide. It literally breaks down. Yep, that's my email. Literally breaks down. It's also, if you want, let me enter it. Oh, you know what? I'll have that in a minute. Hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll have my therapy cloud email too. So I'll come back to that in a minute, Maria. Foreign participation, we're looking at offering some more passive income for as we get the ball rolling and as people get to learn about this and begin to create the content and create this community. We're interested in compensating people for their foreign participation because we really want this to grow. So you can also create more content, not even necessarily in the therapy marketplace. We'd love to have people blog for us, which is an especially good marketing option if you're looking to grow your practice, because everything online is about CEO and the internet is everything related to that. So please contact me with any questions. Please contact me directly. If you have any suggestions, if you want additional opportunities, anything, here's my references. We have some time for Q&A. But here is my contact information. So please feel free to reach out to me. This is my direct Therapy Cloud email too, if you have specific things related to Therapy Cloud. But of course, there's an overlap. So I want to leave some time for Q&A. You've done a great job of just popping in and asking them. But the reality is, like, there's nothing like this that's ever been seen before. So a lot of people have questions, kind of conceptualizing that. I'll open it up. And Maria, I'll go back to that page.
Now,
Yes.
he's gonna jump into Ashley just to ask a question. I see that you've been kind of answering them as we go. So if you didn't get your question answered, I did have folks looking for email address, which I put in there, as well as the YouTube channel for NASW Michigan, even the Facebook group that is for Region 4 NASW. I know if you're not in Region 4, every region, I think at this point in time, has a Facebook group to join. So I just want to kind of, I think, ask a couple questions in terms of, it sounds like there's multiple things on the platform, not just the directory piece, but am I also hearing opportunity to kind of create your own passive income, either host that on the platform or just have a space to create that? Is that kind of what your hope is?
Yeah, absolutely. So this slide I'm hoping is helpful because it literally will show like what are the different packages and what includes. So for everyone, you'll see that there's a therapist profile. For the free membership, that's just event listing options, but also for all the paid memberships, you'll have the rating system, and you'll also have access to the Therapy Cloud or the Therapy Cloud Therapy Marketplace. So our goal is for people to have that. What's different from us is we're not charging you any hosting fee. The only thing that we would be collecting is like a small commission for sales, just to be able to like have that information up there for processing the credit card payments and all that stuff. So yes, this is literally a platform that you get all of these things included. You're not paying additional for the content creation. It's just literally a platform where you can create that content for passive income. Does that help, Lori?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, interesting, Tara. Yeah, so here's the beauty of it is like, because we're creating this, we can create what we want. So really, Tara, what we're doing is we're making sure that they are legitimate credentialed providers, even if it's interdisciplinary. So if you go and if you sign up right now, we'll say, okay, like what's your license number, upload a copy of your credentials so that way that we can verify you and list you. But frankly, as long as you're there, you don't have to have anything be public. And so someone like you, for example, I would work with a developer and I'd say like they want to be there. And my guess is maybe you want to participate in the passive income and you want to have the ability to like participate in the interdisciplinary professional forum. That's great. We'd love to have you involved wherever. You absolutely are not obligated to have a public profile. But if you're creating the content, we also have it integrated for SEO marketing purposes that they can reference that back to you. So if you're concerned about that, I would probably want to just personally have a conversation with you to see what are you concerned about, because there's probably a way to work around that while also giving you the SEO and marketing benefits of that too being listed. Hopefully that helps. Other questions? It's for everyone, Diane, literally. Yep, macro, micro, marriage and family therapists, again, chiropractors, yoga therapists, personal trainers. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Anyone and everyone you know. Yep. And Tara, you'll see at the bottom here that for unlicensed therapists, right? So we have platforms for people, like if you're a group practice, for example, because things like Psychology Today, which is probably the most popular, things like Psychology Today, they don't allow you to have a group practice profile where you can also click on the different providers. So for organizations, that may be a hospital organization, or also for students, we value you. You have an important role. You can also network and find jobs through there, right? You can also have your own content too. So absolutely, we have a package for everyone. We want to invite everyone. You know, we do have like a vetting process. Again, we have people be able verify their credentials and things like that.
So there's another question, make sure I'm
Yeah,
on you.
I see that from Travis.
Yeah, another one, if you kind of the idea of creating content and selling it, what I think, and that's a good question too, right? Are there copyrights? Are there other protections, or are there other obligations? I know, like, if you create like Squarespace, like if you create a website through there, it sometimes gets tricky if you want to take it off of Squarespace and like move it over to like WordPress or some other place.
Yep.
They definitely will have you go through some more hoops to have that happen. So can you speak?
Yeah, so we're not looking to make it harder, we're looking to make it easier, but we are a platform and we are also not an attorney. So that's spelled out pretty in depth in our terms and conditions. Oh, no, I just lost it. Yep, so your question about if we create a content therapy cloud and leave, what happens to the content? So it's not like all of the content, it's your right. We are just the platform that's hosting it and sharing it. So we can't, because we're not an attorney, we can't have copyright protection for your information because it's not our information. So if you create content and you leave the content, you just don't have the, again, in our terms here, but you will not have access to passive income from that content. It's not our content, it's your content. So you can take it and post it wherever you want. We don't care about that, but you just won't be able to have passive income from it because that is all factored into, like the credit card billing and all that. Ada, yeah. Oh, I've heard the 12 cups thing is like horrible. Yeah, please, yeah. Oh, my pleasure.
And I also think with the 12 cups or 7, whatever the cups thing is, I've seen that too. I know
Yeah.
that there was a prior platform that did something different, and we can, because I had to do this, we can file a complaint with the AG's office.
I think you're thinking of CareDash.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a whole mess. Yeah, so this is you creating it. It is not we're taking the information. This is us just creating a means for people to have passive income, communication, collaboration, and community. So we don't own any of this. We make this very clear in our terms is like you're gonna have to scroll a while. So a lot of we have an FAQ page as well too. I encourage you all to check that out on the website. But if you go into the terms, if you like the legalese stuff, you can also probably have your questions answered there too.
see if there's any, yeah, I think I think you answered this one, but Diane.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leave the
Yeah, so I would say answer the same question. Check out the FAQ. I want to be sensitive to our time too, because I know that we're so check out the FAQs, check out the terms. You just wouldn't, passive income is not possible. So
let's see, we're all, and I just saw that we're after 1:30. So
yeah, we are.
go ahead and wrap up. So thank you everybody for attending, for asking the questions. This recording will be on the NASW Michigan YouTube channel, as well as I will get a copy of the presentation to send it out. And then Ashley has graciously provided her email, so feel free to email